silence fell, which no one seemed inclined to break. "Well," said Semple impatiently, "come on, speak up. Where's all this assorted lot of theories I've been hearing in the saloons ever since that nugget was turned up?" A man with the most extraordinarily ragged garments got to his feet and began to speak in a pleasant and cultivated voice. "I have no solution to offer this company," said he, "but I am, or was, a New York lawyer, and if my knowledge of partnerships will help any, this is the New York law." He sketched briefly the New York rulings on partnerships and sat down. "Much obliged, I'm sure," said Semple cordially. "We're glad to know how they figured it out down there. Only trouble, as far as I can see, is that there ain't usually finding many nuggets down that neck of the woods. So they ain't precisely fitted the case. Anybody know anything nearer to home?" "I panned in Shirt Tail Bar last 2 months," blurted a hoarse and embarrassed individual without rising. "Down there they had a regulation that any nugget that weighs over half an ounce that is found before the dirt is thrown in the cradle belongs to the man that finds it, and not to the company. Of course this here is a pan and not a cradle." "That's more like business. Anybody know if anywhere they do it the other way round?" Apparently nobody did. "Anybody got any ideas as to why we shouldn't follow Shirt Tail in this matter? Doggone you, set down. You ain't got nothing to say here." The man appealed to the crowd. "Ain't I got a right to be heard in my own case?" he demanded. "This ain't your case," persisted John Semple stoutly. "It's deciding what the policy of this camp is going to be regarding nuggets. Your doggone case is mighty unimportant, and you're a prejudiced party. And if you don't set down, I'll come down there and argue with you. If none of you other fellas has anything to say, we'll vote on it." We then and there decided, almost unanimously, to follow Shirt Tail. "Now," resumed Semple, after this matter had been disposed of, "there's a bunch of these here keskities around, throwing assorted duck fits all this morning, and as far as I can make out, they say somebody's jumped their claim or their camp or something. Jim, supposing you and your tin star saunter down and eject these jumpers." A very tall, quiet, slow-moving man arose, aimed his tobacco juice at a small tree, drawled out the words, "All right, Judge," and departed, trailed by half a dozen jabbering keskidees, to whom he paid not the slightest attention. "Now," said Semple, "we've got a couple of greasers you caught stealing. Buck Barry and Missouri Jones caught them at it, so there ain't much use hearing witnesses as to the fact. Question is, what do we want to do with them?" "What did they steal?" demanded a voice. "They just naturally didn't steal nothing," said a heavily built, square-jawed, clean-shaven man, whom I guessed to be Buck Barry. "Not while I was around." "Yes," persisted the other, "but what was they after?" "Oh, an extra pair of boots and a shirt and some tobacco, etc.," replied Buck Barry contemptuously. "Let's see them," shouted several voices. After a moment's delay, 2 ragged and furtive Mexicans were dragged before the assembly. A contemplative silence ensued. Then an elderly man with a square gray beard spoke up. "Well," he said deliberately, "airy a man so low and shiftless and miserable as to go stealing boots and shirts and tobacco in this camp is sure outside my corral. He sure must be a miserable person. Why in hell didn't Buck in Missouri give him a few lifts with the toes of their boots, and not come bothering us with them?" Both Barry and Jones started to reply, but Semple cut them short. "They was going to do just that," he announced, "but I persuaded them to bring this matter up before this meeting, because we've got to begin to take some measures to stop this kind of nuisance. There's a lot of undesirables drifting into this camp lately. You boys all recall how last fall we kept our dust under our bunks, or most anywhere, and felt perfectly safe about it, but that ain't now. A man has to carry his dust right with him. Now if we can't leave our tents feeling our goods is safe, what do you expect to do about it? We've got to throw the fear of God into the black hearts of these hounds." At this juncture, Jim the sheriff returned and leaned nonchalantly against a tree, chewing a straw. Accepting the point of view advanced by the chair, the miners decided that the two thieves should be whipped and banished from camp. A strong feeling prevailed that any man who, in this age of plenty, would descend to petty thieving was a poor, miserable creature to be pitied. Some charitably inclined individual took up a small collection which was presented to the thieves after they had received their punishment. "And now vamoose, get," advised Semple, "and spread the glad tidings. We'll do the same by any more of you." "Well, Jim?" he inquired of the sheriff. Jim shifted his straw from the right corner of his mouth to the left. "That outfit don't eject worth a cuss," he said laconically. "How many of them is there?" asked Semple. "Two and a shotgun," stated Jim. "I reckon we'll eject them if we say eject," cried someone truculently, and several others growled assent. Jim cast a humorous eye in that direction. "Oh, I reckon I'm equal to the job," he said. "And if you say eject again, why out they go. Only when I looked that outfit over and saw that there was only two of them and 6 of these jabbering keskydees, why, I just naturally wondered whether it was by and according to the peace and dignity of this camp to mix up in that kind of a muss. I should think they ought to be capable of doing their own ejecting." A discussion arose on this point. The sentiment seemed unanimous that the Frenchmen ought to have been able to protect themselves, but was divided on the opinion of how far the camp was now committed to action. "They'll think they bluffed us out if we drop her now," argued one side. "It ought not to be the policy of this camp to mix up with private quarrels," argued the other. John Semple decided the question. "It looks like we're in the hole," he admitted, "and have got to do something. Now I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have Jim here give these keskydees blank warrants, that they can serve themselves and to suit themselves." This ingenious solution was very highly commended. "Unless somebody else has something to bring up, I guess that's about all," announced Semple. "No inquests?" someone asked. "Nary an inquest. This camp is getting healthy. Adjourned." And the meeting was brought to a formal conclusion by the tap of the pistol on the empty barrel. End of chapter 18.